Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this first LGR Scrutiny meeting. This is a meeting of the Council held in public. It is not a public meeting. There is no fire drill planned, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave by the exit nearest the large screen at the front of the room and proceed down the fire exit to the courtyard. Once it is safe to return, councillors will receive a text message. Officers will also advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Oh no, please turn that off. Sorry. We are recording the meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the council's website following the meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. We haven't got any public, have we? No. Okay. So, good evening again, everyone. Thank you all for attending. As this is our inaugural session, I want to begin by setting out the purpose of today's meeting and the role this committee will play going forward. The purpose of today is threefold: to establish the role of this committee within the wider LGR governance arrangements, to set clear expectations for how we will operate as a scrutiny committee, and to begin our oversight of the LGR programme, ensuring we have visibility of the right areas from the outset. Today is about establishing strong and effective scrutiny arrangements, not reviewing detailed delivery decisions. Before we move into the agenda, it's important to reflect on why this committee is being established and why our role is critical. Local government reorganisation represents a significant and complex change programme with wide-ranging impacts on services, residents, staff and finances. It is essential that decisions are transparent, risks are understood and managed, and public value and outcomes are clearly demonstrated, and delivery remains aligned to strategic objectives. Effective scrutiny will help ensure the programme is robust, accountable and delivers the attended benefits for our communities. The role of the Scrutiny Committee, our role is to provide constructive evidence-based challenge and assurance. In practical terms, this means we will review progress of the LGR programme at a strategic level, challenge assumptions, risks and delivery confidence, ensure governance, decision-making and reporting are clear and consistent, consider the impact on residents, partners and services, and make recommendations where appropriate to strengthen delivery. This is not a forum for operational management. Our role is to add value through independent oversight and challenge. To be effective, we need to be clear about how we operate. We will focus on the most significant risks, decisions and areas of impact. We will use evidence and data to inform our discussions, and we will maintain a constructive and forward-looking approach. And we will work collaboratively while retaining appropriate independence. We will also ensure that reporting is clear, accessible and enables us to track progress over time. In today's meeting, we will receive an overview of the LGR programme and governance arrangements, begin to consider whether the scope of scrutiny is appropriate, identify any immediate areas of concern, gaps or priorities for future meetings, a deep dive into environmental services, climate and open spaces to understand the impacts and opportunities. The opportunities that LGR will have on these services. Today is about building our shared understanding and confirming our focus, not examining detailed delivery plans. In closing, I want to emphasise that this committee plays an important role in supporting successful delivery of LGR. Our aim is to ensure the programme is well governed, transparent, deliverable and ultimately beneficial for the residents we represent. I look forward to working with all of you in that spirit. Let's now move into the first agenda item. Apologies for absence. Councillor Sinead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just to confirm that Councillor Cassidy is absent today, and as per the message I sent you at 10 o'clock this morning, saying that I would be replacing him on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, could I just add, we do have a process for recording substitutions, so in future...
It was sent this morning at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but it's not recorded on ours. Just asking that if you could copy governance in future, we can record it. Thank you.
Lovely. Any declarations of interest?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm an Essex County Councillor, and we previously have announced that we will be doing a judicial review on LGR, so just bringing that to the attention of the committee. Thank you.
I also put myself up for that. Local Government Reorganisation overview presentation, I believe to be delivered by Julian.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate people in this room have been dealing with this issue for a lot longer than I have, but obviously what I've done is I've come into the organisation to try and give it some oversight and hopefully keep the process safe. So I wanted to kind of use this opportunity to set out some of the issues. What I'm going to do is, rather than teach you to suck eggs, I want to use some of the slides to prompt questions for the committee to consider. So if I kind of walk through the slides, if you can take me to the agenda slide. So really all I just wanted to say at this point, so from an officer point of view, we're talking about how do we keep the organisation safe, how do we make sure it's prepared, how do you make sure we're spending the money wisely, there is money to manage the process of change. And really wanted to talk to you as a councillors across all parties about how we advocate for the position of Basildon. So there are 3 levels for me on this which I'd like you to consider. One is the strategic bit. I'm going to be honest with you, that's the bit that interests me most, which is in the longer term you're thinking about strategic planning. For instance, what would you want to do about growth if you're kind of partnering with Thurrock? What do you mean for growth across the area? What does it mean for how you take on community leadership? How would you think about sectors that you might want to prioritise? What does leadership mean in a new context? So there's a strategic bit. I'm going to ask you as a committee, I think, to hold that. You might want to come back to it and test it as the process develops further. The second bit is operational. So this is the bread and butter stuff. So if you were getting into it, you might kind of go, well, if we've got a fortnightly bin collection and they've got a weekly bin collection, what does it mean? What does it mean for how people get paid if we've got different pay scales? What does it mean about where officers will be based and so on? So there's a real operational bit to this, which is really important for your residents, but it's really, really important for your staff as well. So just want to keep the operational bit. I think that, for me, is where I'm focused at the moment to keep you safe. The last one is the element which is around the politics of this, which is kind of left with yourselves. You might be looking at the model, the principles and so on. The caveat I put on that particular area is obviously we're waiting for government decision, and obviously if once it goes to statute, then we would be expected to implement. So from our perspective as officers, we work on the basis we continue, we get prepared, and we make sure that we look after everybody and keep you safe. So if I can take you through to the next question, I'm going to pose you, so the next slide, I'm going to pose you an issue here, which I'd like you to just hold on to. So you've got potentially a new Prime Minister starting very, very soon. He is very much an advocate of devolution. You need to think about devolution and LGR. They are separate, but they are also connected. You've got an interesting potential situation where you could have devolution at the county level, which is what I think the new Prime Minister would support. You might then, if you didn't have devolution, you would then have responsibilities at a county level, and you'd have responsibilities locally and unitary. So it'd be very complicated about that relationship. What you need to think about is the devolution bit will take responsibilities from central government into the county. So it's kind of that strategic piece. So again, working out what you're then handing across through devolution, through LGR, to the local areas is about that relationship again at the county. So your relationship now will be different to what the relationship would be in the future. You need to keep that in mind. So you're not just looking at yourselves locally, you're looking at yourselves at the county level and that more strategic level as well. So we want to just keep it. So my question on this slide, rather than anything else, is what is the implication of devolution on LGR? So that's something for you to hold on to. You don't necessarily need, it's a massive question, you don't need to try and solve that now, but it's something that you need to come back to. So we just move through to the next slide. This is interesting. So this is what we're responsibility. Now, if you work across, if you think about Basildon and Thurrock, it's going to cover all three pieces there. So we've got Thurrock as the unitary, we've got the county, and we've got ourselves. So at the moment, those responsibilities are all shared and split across all three. So what we're trying to work out is how do you pull all of those together? So we just want you to think about, if we're that third column at the moment, how do we, through this process, and this is a governance question but a tactical question for you, how do we make sure that Basildon has its voice, that it's heard, that we're influential? Look at that first column, you can look at Thurrock, they'll be looking at it going, we do everything. So this is part of the challenge of this process, is to make sure that we present ourselves effectively in the conversations that come up. It's partly a governance, that's hard governance, but it's also soft governance, it's your relationship building. So just to hold on to that one. Okay, if I take you through to the next one, only one thing to say, the name is not settled right now, that is the proposed name. If people really hate the name, then you've got time to challenge it. It may not change, but it's just to say that's what's being proposed at the moment in time. We're working on the basis we are the South West Essex Council. Okay. If I take you through to the timetable, things to think about here. This board will want to challenge what we're doing as officers and what you want to prioritise and progress on. You are not going to solve everything by May 2028. I'm sure you will know that, but I know we will see other places that have gone through this and they will be dealing with it years later, trying to make sure. So if we've got a finance system here and they've got a finance system in Thurrock, we may all have contracts that got 3 years to run for all we know. So things will amalgamate over time. So do not think you've got to have it all done by May 28. Think about what you want to prioritise by May 28, and so that we're safe again. So it's just holding that in mind. So if I take you through to the next bit. So obviously what we've got is the decision. So we've got a decision at the moment that we go with the 5 model. So my challenge again, it's the big strategic question, how do you maximise the potential? So when we were talking to MHCLG, we were saying that actually the combination of these 2 areas, you may not be loving that idea, but these 2 areas economically within Essex are massively strong, and in fact your strongest part of Essex. So the potential with things like the Lower Thames Crossing, etc., from a growth perspective is really effective. If you look at some of the economic data on Basildon, it's really good. You have really strong kind of assets here, and economically, you've got a strong industry, you've got a strong growing industry, but you also have, I've raised this with the leader, you've got a challenge around skills. So your skills levels here are low relative to your economy. So there are some strategic challenges here where you might kind of go, in the future, how do we make sure that local people exploit the opportunities economically? So that's the kind of, you've got your decision, you need to start thinking about the potential of that decision. So in other words, what I'm saying is there is an operational conversation, make sure you're safe, but there's that strategic conversation you need to come back to. So if I go to the next one then, right, so now we're starting to get into the detail of what we have to do. We're waiting for the structural change order. The structural change order is likely to land in the autumn. So if you think about then the implementation of a structural change order, in other words, it's real. When that happens, it's real. That probably means, in reality, by the new year, it's starting to impact. Now, the timescales on some of this is really tight around elections for next year and so on. So I'm sure that will be part of your thinking is, can we be safe? Can we be ready within the timeframes that we have available? Yeah. So the structural change order is expected later in the year. We've got we're monitoring that timetable. What we have to do in the meantime is get ready. So in other words, we will do shadow arrangements before formal arrangements. And so again, those shadow arrangements will be to replicate the future formal ones. But again, you need to make sure you use those shadow arrangements well. So in other words, there are working groups already in place across the county. There are working groups underway. So there will be things that are there which you can make the most of. So if I just come through to the next one. So what will actually happen is you're going to end up with elections next year, that will be for this future authority. They will have 5-year terms. Again, I know you know this, but you will have 5-year terms. So you need to think about what's the implication of that. What will happen next year is you'll be sitting here running this authority, but you'll have this shadow authority, and then it will start to influence and determine what you're allowed to do. So in other words, if you turn around and suddenly I'm going to sell huge stuff or buy huge stuff or make major policy changes, this shadow council is going to go, no. So you're going to, I mean, I'm sure it'll be many of you will be on that shadow council. So it'll be you talking to you, I suspect. But you need to be mindful that will be in play. And there will be lots of councillors you've not yet worked with who are based in Thurrock and that will be part of this. What you will also need to think about, and this is the kind of where you get into the fun fights and detail of it, is we are roughly 200,000 residents, and we have 42 councillors. They are 160,000 residents and have 49 councillors. So at some point you're going to have a debate about what's the right balance of councillors across this whole new patch, and the proposal is just over 80. The proposal is not to change the Basildon side of it. The proposal is to alter the Thurrock side of it. In other words, they get fewer councillors in order to make this balance out. But you're going to have a debate at some point about ward boundaries, not Basildon ward boundaries, but Thurrock ward boundaries. So that is down the road. That is to come. The potential is they can set that out in the structural change order. So in other words, they can say this is the number of councillors, this is what we expect the wards to be. It's quite tricky to do that, so they might, in effect, hand off that responsibility to our joint committee locally to manage the process of the ward boundaries. So just keep that in mind. Shouldn't affect the numbers here. You are going to get into some horrible details at some point as well about which chamber can fit that number of people in, and where is that chamber. You are going to get to the detail at some point about, do you have one town hall or two? You are going to, you're going to have debates about kind of how you manage services across different areas. That's the fun fight for you to have down the road, but it's probably not quite at that point yet. I would actually advocate to say that Basildon is a bit nicer than Grays, but that's my bias. So we go on to the next thing, is we have got some money towards this change. One of the challenges for this committee that would be quite helpful is to test what we do with that. At the moment, the proposal is 900k, which is not a great deal, if I'm being blunt with you, but it will be a starting point. That is shared across the two areas, obviously working with the county as well. We've obviously previously set aside some reserves towards managing change, and one of the questions will be what type of change needs funding supporting. So sorting out contracts and amalgamating that will be one of those tricky issues. I would argue that having staff trained effectively and making sure that that's fit for purpose. I'll give you one quick example where the planning system in Thurrock is very modernised and they've taken on IT and it's really good. We are not there yet here. So that might be one of those questions. If we're going to kind of say, well, our planning system is like this and theirs is like that, that's a question you could look to kind of how do I fund the change around that one. On the other side of it, I would say we're about to introduce something into our customer services that's going to put us ahead of anyone in Essex. So again, we would probably look at that and go, we bring something to the table that Thurrock we know does not have. So there will be costs on both sides as to how we bring ourselves up to speed. So that will be to be tested in this space here as well. Then, so we go to the, so we've talked about the structural change order. I would take from this stage, don't overread into it, work on the basis, once it's in place, it means it's happening, okay? So when you talk about, if there's going to be a legal challenge or whatever, you're going to reach a point where once it's been placed and agreed and approved, then we are going ahead with LGR. So just keep that in mind. That is some time ahead, by the way. So go to the next one. So this is the bit I want to put on your radar. Again, you're probably aware of this. This is about how decisions in the future might be made. You're going to have a joint committee. Now, the joint committee, we will have a shadow joint committee until we got the structural change order. The change committee, this joint committee is going to have representatives of the county, ourselves and Thurrock. But if you look at the table, you'll see it says 224. In other words, the unitary, which is Thurrock, if we're making big decisions about strategic priorities and so on, potentially the county and Thurrock can gang up on Basildon. I know that's a bit of an unsubtle way of putting it. So one of the issues for us might be having the conversations now about how do we ensure that Basildon has an equal voice. Do we think the unitary should have 4 votes compared to our 2, for instance? So that's something, and I think we've discussed before, Councillor Callahan. So it's something we should come back to, but it's something for you to consider in terms of the future arrangements for the governance here. So that's the kind of, and we will move to set that joint committee up. That will be representatives. That would tend to include leaders and chief execs around the joint committee. You would have an implementation team that supports the joint committee. The implementation team is people like me and colleagues to make sure that we can actually implement it for you. So what we're trying to do now, and this is the kind of day-to-day business for you, we looked at it as phase 1 was get your decision. So you've got your decision. It's the 5 model. Phase 2, which is what we're in now, is basically you need to know that when we go into the room with Thurrock and the county that Basildon is an equal, and therefore we're ready. We are doing a kind of audit on ourselves at the moment. So I'm kind of got my teams working on this. You can see the areas we're looking at. And what we're trying to say is what is the data and status of each of those blocks there? What are the gaps that we've got? How do we fill in the gaps? And how do we interpret what we're finding? So as an example, I would want us to know all our contracts. I'd like to know the value of them, how long they've got, etc. I'm trying to get to a point by September where this is my phase 2, where I can come back to this committee and go, I can look across this piece and I can tell you about my systems in IT. I can tell you about the contracts we've got. I can tell you everything you need to know about James's area and how it operates and so on. So that would be our kind of staging at the moment. We would get into that. You might want to deep dive into them. So as an example, you can deep dive into this particular area here now. Now, what we've tried to do is make sure all our service plans think about LGR. So that's for the first time we've put that into every service plan. So we can look across the organisation. Does someone like James think about what LGR means for his service? And that's, you know, the operational bit, the political bit, and so on. And we'll test that in a while. So that's what we're doing at the moment. I'm going to not get into lots of detail here, but for example, in order to be prepared, we're doing a new workforce strategy right now, and what we're trying to look at is what is the workforce that we need, what are our structures, how do those structures match up to Thurrock structures, what is the development and training needs of our organisation right now, how does that compare to elsewhere as well. So that would be one of the kind of work streams that we're kind of looking at now. What do we need to do to be prepared? So there's a theme here which is really key. Regardless of LGR, we should do this anyway. So there's a kind of lots of elements here which I think hopefully would make us a better organisation. So I kind of, for me, the work is not lost regardless of what's going on with LGR, but it will make us better at LGR when we get there. So that's some of the example. I'll just move on to the next one. And then just to pick up last couple of slides, one is around our own governance. So I run an LGR board, so to make sure I've got all the right officers on board so we can do that. We do that fortnightly. We make sure we're doing communications regularly to our staff to make sure that they know what's going on. And what we're trying to do is we are meeting with colleagues from the county, from Thurrock already. I'm meeting my counterparts regularly now, and I've got my teams doing the same, just so that we're prepared and on board with it. And then the final slide, colleagues, is just to talk about really, from our perspective, this is an officer perspective, what we would really like to do is make sure that Basildon gets the right voice in the right room at the right time. So that means that you're testing us here around what we're prioritising, making sure that, you know, we're ready for that May 28 in the best possible way, that we would ask that you would be our advocates, that you are our intelligence, that you are our test, and ultimately you hopefully make us do it better than we would otherwise do it. So I think that's where we're up to, Chair. Happy to take questions and anything else that you'd like to test with us as well.
Thank you, Julian. It's a very thorough presentation. Has anyone got any questions?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just in regards to LGR, if the judicial review goes ahead, at what point do we stop the whole process? Say if we win and we stop LGR, does it stop happening the next day, or would you prefer to still go through the motions to try and find out where the weaknesses are in the organisation?
So yeah, so if a judicial review went through, it depends if the government has the right of appeal. So they may do that, if I suspect, and therefore I think the timetable, in effect, they will define the timetable of how that concludes. I think from my perspective, it's my point, which is that all of the work you're seeing we're doing, we need to do anyway. So I think, you know, you might change the name of the committee, but you would probably still want to make sure that we're really on top of our workforce strategy, etc., etc. So I don't think I can give you the definitive stop point. I think that's the government can only do that. But you might, Chair, you might want to alter how this particular meeting works.
Thank you very much. In regards to the cost of LGR so far to Basildon, what does that look like, and what do you expect the final cost to be once all is said and done, not including any redundancies or anything like that, pure, how can I say, pure creation of services and creation of the plan? Thank you.
That is the real how long is a piece of string question. So what I would say, Councillor, is that at this moment in time, I've not created an LGR team or LGR officers. I'm taking the current set of officers and we're kind of doing that work as part of our day job. So I've got someone like Lou Evans here who would be in charge of my PMO, so that's a work stream within the PMO. So they're not identified separate costs. At this moment in time, I've not drawn down any reserve funding or other funding at this point. I think the cost will come through amalgamation of systems. I think that'll be one. I think the cost will come through potential redundancies if you were to kind of reshape teams down the line. But again, I can't really preempt the cost of that. There is always a cost of change, but I suppose the counter to that is you might have more efficient systems. You might have fewer staff, you know, fewer managers or fewer of me or whatever. So there might be savings on the other side of it. So I think it's probably something we should report back into this committee as we go, as a running report, maybe, if that's helpful.
Absolutely. One question, that's fine. Thank you very much. And just in regards to how you suggest that we make the playing field a little bit more level with Thurrock and Essex, what were your initial thoughts, and what do you think would be the best game plan for Basildon? Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't turn my camera. Yeah, sorry, through you, Chair. So first thing to say is, talking to Thurrock, we think actually what you're talking about, many of our services are like for like. So you'll end up, they've got a comms team, we've got a comms team, we'll end up with one comms team. So actually our relationships with them are fairly straightforward. I think the kind of negotiations with them, they have lots of different systems. That'll be the thing that takes time, but you don't need to solve all of those by May 28. My take on it is the much bigger debate is Thurrock and the county, because I think that's where the real issues lie, because what you've got is you've got children's services run by the county and children's services run by Thurrock. Thurrock have just come out and gone, they are outstanding at children's services. So they will turn around and go, do not tell us how to run children's services. That is where the debate, ironically or thankfully, Basildon is in probably the easiest place of the three parts of this. I think our job is at the moment is to advocate strongly for us to have the same voice as anybody else. I think we need to do lots of the soft engagement, whether that's you into the county or whether it's us locally. It's about us keeping engaged with MHCLG, and I think we can continue to do that. I think what I would also say is use the processes. We've got working groups working all at the same time. Keep them going. So that gives us a formal route. So it's formal and informal, but I would say the bigger challenge is Thurrock and the county. I think that's a really tricky one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julian.
Okay.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. May I first of all thank Mr Enley for your presentation as well. Chair, I listened to your introduction, so I just wanted to ask, first of all, just around the role of this committee and the process, first of all. So I noticed that you referenced in your introduction that the role of the committee is not to get into the delivery plans and to get into the deep dives into the policy process, yet Mr Enley mentioned that's the second priority for the work for this scrutiny committee. Can you just add some clarity and just provide an answer as to what is it?
Julian, could you take that question for me, please?
So from my perspective, I think what you will be doing as a committee is needing to ensure that every part of the organisation has got LGR on its mind. So you might find, this is my view, Chair, is that you would be looking at the forward plan for Cabinet, for example. If you saw that James was bringing something forward relevant to his service, you might say, how does that relate to LGR? Have you thought that through? So if he was changing, say he was changing the bin collections situation, you would go, right, that needs to come in here because there's a relationship with Thurrock in the future. So I think you're inevitably looking at the decision making of the organisation and how it plays into this space. So I think you're inevitably looking at some of that stuff.
Thank you, Chair. So just for clarity, for when we see the forward plans for the work programme for Cabinet, we have the opportunity to bring operational matters to this committee for us to be able to scrutinise through the lens of LGR.
Could you just bear with me just a minute? Sorry. I think all members of the committee are welcome to put in some suggestions for anything they do want to scrutinise that they find on the Cabinet forward plan, and we'll take that under advisement. Yeah, I'll consider any option that you put forward to add to the agenda. All right. Councillor Barnes? No? Councillor Callaghan?
Thank you, Chair. I'm slightly confused. I have to be honest, right? I am slightly confused. And I don't mean this as a slight, but the presentation that we have just seen is 6 months out of date. I mean, I have great respect for you, Julian. You know this, right? But listening to you tonight, it was as if the LGR decision happened last Wednesday and we've just decided that this is what the council should start focusing on now. I think it's worth just putting a timeline on this, isn't it? It was the 16th of December 2024 that the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill was published. And in that bill, the government made clear of their intention to go down the route of local government reorganisation, and through Kevin Bentley, as well as through Dan Cowan and at the time John Kent and others, Essex was put on the devolution priority programme.
Councillor Callaghan, do you have a question?
I have several. I think context is very important. We've had the 16th of December. We then had the 17th of July 2025 when the government again confirmed.
Point of order, Chair.
Where we are.
The gentleman isn't asking a question. He's literally given a speech, I believe. Thank you.
Could you please get to your question?
I've got pages of questions, Chair, but I do just want to set the context.
Yeah, if you could start with the first one, that would be great.
Who's chairing the meeting?
Councillor Callaghan, if you could please ask your first question.
I'm getting it. I have to be able to speak in order to... am I right, Rachel? I have to be able to speak in order to ask a question?
If you could just ask your first question.
No, she's done it. She's fine. She's fine. She's all good.
Shall I carry on?
With a question.
Yeah. Very good. Mr. Alabi, where does LGR rank at this moment in time?
Councillor Callaghan, questions through me, please.
Through the chair.
Okay, let me ask through the chair, Mr. Ellaby, where does LGR currently rank in terms of your priorities right now in your role?
Julian, would you like to answer that now, or would you like to get back to Councillor Callaghan on that?
I would say it's up there as joint top of my work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same question to Councillor Barnes.
Do you want to answer that? You don't have to.
He's here to be scrutinised, is it?
We've got a lot of mics on. I think with LGR, I think as Julian said, it ties into everything that we do. So we'd be mindful of LGR with any decisions that we make, notwithstanding the fact that whatever our view on the actual LGR process is, we still have to be mindful that if it happens, we want to make sure that we're as prepared as we can possibly be.
Okay, so that, Chair, sounds like it's very important to both Mr. Ellaby and to the Leader of the Council. As a ballpark figure then, in the last month, how many meetings would Mr. Ellaby say he has had on LGR, both internally and externally?
Happy to answer?
Yeah, I'm happy to go through my diary if that's helpful. But I mean, I've done meetings with the county council, with all the chief execs. I've run my LGR board. I've done meetings with different leads across the organisation. So I'm kind of doing meetings every week on it at the moment.
Same question to Councillor Barnes.
Yes, the same answer.
So you would say every week you're having meetings with Essex County Council and Thurrock Council in relation to LGR. Is that correct? Is that what you've just said to the committee?
No. What I said was that I'm having meetings every week that involve LGR.
Okay, so if I asked the question of how many times in the last month have you met with your counterpart as the leader of Thurrock Council, what would the answer to that question be? So,
Sorry, bear with me just a minute. Sorry, could you repeat, please?
Of course, Chair. I'm just asking, since the 21st of May, when Councillor Barnes became the leader, how many times?
Do you want to check your diary, or are you happy to answer?
No such meetings have taken place as yet.
Okay. How many times since the 21st of May, Chair, has Councillor Barnes met with the leader of Essex County Council to discuss LGR?
Councillor Barnes?
I have certainly discussed LGR with the leader of Essex County Council.
On how many occasions, Chair?
I don't recall the exact number off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. I think, Chair, what I'm trying to get at is I'm trying to establish the baseline of where we are, because the decision was taken to go to the 5 model on the 25th of March. So we have now had more than a quarter of the year, more than a quarter of the calendar year. And we need to understand between that decision being taken and the present day. Mr. Ellaby's presentation suggested that an awful lot of the things that were taking place 6 months ago are only now just taking place. I want to establish some clarity for the committee. But I also think we need to, and Mr. Ellaby referenced this in his journey, in his opening. So can I ask Councillor Barnes, through the chair, did you watch the incoming Prime Minister's speech on Monday?
You don't have to answer that, Councillor Barnes. I think that's a bit irrelevant now.
Why is that irrelevant?
We're going to move on now.
Thank you very much.
There's other people there's other people waiting to ask questions.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
We can come back to you shortly.
So in regards to what we've heard today as well, I mean, I know the Leader of the Opposition mentions that over the last 6 months nothing has been done, but we remind him that actually it was only up until about 6-7 weeks ago that the administration changed. So you've got to understand.
Councillor Ferguson, sorry, could you turn your mic off, please? Thank you.
Thank you. So for those watching at home, I think it's quite important to make it very clear that only up until about 6-7 weeks ago the administration changed 6 or 7 weeks ago. So you'll understand there's induction periods, there's meeting with officers, and there's the creation of new committees and whatnot. So I don't think it's very fair to blame that all on the current administration and in terms of what they're doing right now. Yeah, thank you. So in regards to the question, Julian, would you be able to confirm, because of the change of administration over the last 6 or 7 weeks, do you think that's had an impact on your ability to deliver LGR within the council?
Is that through me,
Through
Councillor
the
Jeannet?
chair, of course.
Well, firstly, to say I did want to kind of set out the kind of context for LGR, so I do accept some of the. But yeah, so I'm just making the point that
Could you just wait your turn?
some of it
We'll
is
come back to you in a
context and
second,
therefore,
all right?
yeah, could
A
have
little
been
bit
played out
patience.
earlier. In terms of kind of the work we've been done, obviously I've started this year and we've been working constantly on it from the beginning of the year, working with the previous administration and this administration. Yeah, there'll always be other things that kind of impact on a day-to-day basis, whether that's elections or whatever. But I think the intention from working with my team and others across the organisations, we keep going. Come back to my starting point, Chair, which is my job is to keep you safe. Yeah, so that's what we've been trying to do, make sure that we are absolutely kind of doing the work that we need to do on LGR. I will make sure my presentation is a bit more current next time.
Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you. This council has, in the last 6 weeks, passed a motion to say that it is not happy with the government decision. Similarly, Councillor Barnes has put on social media multiple times that he is not in favour of the 5 UA model. Could he elaborate for the committee, through you, Chair, exactly why he is against the South West Essex Council? So I'm seeking to establish a baseline of understanding about where the administration is on the government decision about the South West Essex Council. He could just be clear for us tonight, because obviously this isn't Facebook, this is the council. Let's just understand fully why he is against the merger with Thurrock.
Like to answer?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the question, because it is it's a good opportunity to point out what the challenges with the Basildon and Thurrock merger are. The first one, I think, and the most prevalent one, is that every financial forecast I've seen from anyone credible who isn't trying to sort of sell this as a project has suggested that this council is likely to go bust around social care in the early 2030s. There just simply isn't enough of a base to support the kind of social care needs that future authority is likely to have. So that is something that would have to be urgently addressed if that council was to go ahead. The second thing is the sort of lack of cohesion with the actual sort of region that is being discussed. We don't have a huge amount to do with Thurrock at present. It's not like the two councils have, you know, the same working relationship that, say, two councils like Rochford and Castle Point do, for example. We don't really have a great deal to do with each other, and I don't think our residents see Thurrock and Basildon as a region per se. So I think that's a significant concern. The third reason would be the level of debt that both councils are carrying. It seems to me insanity to join two of the most indebted councils in the country together. That seems completely illogical to my mind. And there's also, you know, the question of how the two councils can operate together when one is a unitary, the other is currently a borough council. I've mentioned many times in this council before that I have served on another council previously, though that council was smaller than the council that it chose to combine its services with. So the two councils didn't combine themselves, but they combined their services. The reality of that was that the larger authority consume the other. And the worry for me, whilst I appreciate that Basildon is geographically bigger, has more residents, is that a unitary council there'll be a tendency to consume the borough council. And if that happens, because they're already looking after the services, and Mr. Ellaby's already alluded to the fact that Thurrock are very protective, understandably, of their children's services, but suddenly that's something that's imposed on our residents rather than something that they're involved with. So that's just some of the areas where I think there are significant concerns around the merger of Basildon and Thurrock. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, and I thank Councillor Barnes for his answer. That is helpful. I think residents will be surprised to learn that none of them have ever been to Lakeside, because that's obviously not a meaningful geography, or that they may have outstanding children's services imposed upon them. Can I ask, because again, that is the first time we've heard all of his reasons, and I want to come to the issue about social care in a moment. But before I do that, because I think it is important to talk about the numbers, does the leader know what Basildon's annual economic GVA is?
Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to get involved in questions that are clearly designed to catch people out. It's absurd.
Can I ask, does he know what...
I think we'll have 2 more questions and then we're going to move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you.
What, are you in a rush?
2 more questions
So rude.
on this.
So rude. Sorry, Chair.
We're not going to scrutinise the
Councillor
LGR
Callaghan,
presentation.
you can have 2 more questions and then we're going to move on to the next agenda item.
Right, so we can't ask questions about children's services, the data, assets and property contracts. I'll put all of these in writing. I mean, and I'll see
If you could, that would be lovely.
I will. My next question then, through you, Chair, is what contact has Councillor Barnes had with MHCLG or with Number 10 about LGR and the South West Essex Council since he took over on the 21st of May?
Councillor Barnes?
Oh, sorry.
The same level of contact that other local authorities would have had. Obviously, the ministry and Number 10 are in touch with various local authorities regarding LGR, and we've had the similar level of contact.
Okay, my final question then, if I'm
Final question then.
The 2. What is the proposed plan, and this is more for Mr. Ellaby, what is the proposed plan for this council's public affairs engagement? How are you planning to speak to MHCLG and make sure, I hope governance have noted that comment, how are you planning to speak to MHCLG and to the incoming Prime Minister and his team, because clearly the current Secretary of State is not likely to remain in his role, and what sort of resource package are you putting behind that as a council or a South West Essex organisation in order to ensure that we are not being left behind when it comes to those discussions with government?
Julian, are you happy to answer that now?
Yes. There's a couple of things here.
Councillor Callaghan, could you turn the mic off, please?
So, one is I can talk about what we will do. What would be really helpful is also to take advice on what we should do, because I think what I'm keen to understand is I don't know who the new minister will be and what relationship we have with that, on the assumption that it is a new minister. Obviously, we've got contacts into the officials. We would do that. We'd obviously want to engage directly with the minister and their new officials as well. We would look at the contacts that we've got at Number 10 as well, and we can pursue that as well. So, we would expect to do that regardless. We've obviously got the governance that allows us to kind of access some of that as well, which we'd go through, whether that's the kind of the formal governance provided through the county council. And there are people like Tom Walker, as you know, and again, through some of those contacts. I suppose the question for us is we want the best possible outcome for Basildon and for this new arrangement. So I suppose the answer would be, what are we advocating for? So I don't think your question is simply what are we doing to advocate around LGR. It's about what we're doing to advocate for the issues that impact on a positive Basildon that would help us for a future model. So I think, for instance, I've said this before, there's well over 100 different pots of money the government have got right now to put into local communities. We should be determining which ones we go for. There are agenda items. I think you definitely need a skills strategy for this area. I think you should be looking at that. I think there's a number of areas where you would say, so for me, Chair, it would not simply about what is our relationship around LGR, it's what's our relationship about the issues that matter to Basildon and how do we advocate on behalf of those. Now, to do that well, you know this, to do some of that well, that costs money. That's the thing.
This is the question.
Yeah.
So what is the answer?
But what I'm saying is, I don't necessarily think it's for me just to give the answer. I think it's for you to advise what, using your, that's the whole point of a scrutiny, is to make better policies. So how, if there's a thought on how to do it well, I've got views on how to do it, but I would take advice on what to do. But I know that all the tactics that I would apply, but I would be wanting to take some of the monies that we've got to support it.
Councillor Callaghan, that's enough now. Okay. That's enough now.
Okay.
I'm going to take one more question from Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Jeanot. Who's first?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and this is a question through the Chair for Mr Ellaby. In regards to children's services and adult social care,
Conflict.
I've already made my position very clear. No, it's not, because I'm an Essex County Councillor and I made a declaration of interest.
£56,000 a year cabinet member.
That'll do.
That's all
Thank
right.
you.
Conflict.
That's probably more, well,
Where's governing?
that's all right, no problem at all.
Where's governing?
I'll ask the question. So,
One day we'll let you away with it.
so question through the Chair for Mr Ellaby. Just in regards to children's services and education, do you believe, because this council has never had any oversight over these particular departments, do you think because there was the potential for change and for this council to maybe get more powers or more services under its hat, that actually we ran this through as a borough council without actually knowing the risks to these services? Now, I can tell you from conversations I've had at County Hall, officers, I don't care whether it's a conflict, this is we're literally having a conversation and we're scrutinising LGR. So I'm just making sure that this council, has
Councillor
covered
Callaghan, could you please be quiet while Councillor Jeanot is speaking? Could you please be quiet?
So through the Chair,
Please be quiet.
through the Chair, for Mr Ellaby, just in regards to, I mean, I would love to be able to ask my question without being interrupted, but we have silence there. Silence.
Be fair.
Well, anyway, third time through the Chair, Mr Ellaby, has this council taken into consideration the impact on children and adult social care and made sure that actually this is something that we need?
Councillor Callaghan, will you please be quiet? Will you please be quiet?
Point.
I haven't said a word.
Please be quiet. Turn your mic off and please be quiet when someone else is talking. You've asked plenty of questions. You've had plenty of time to speak.
For about 4
Could you
minutes.
please turn that mic off?
When you
Could you please turn the mic off? Councillor Jeanot, please continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and for the 5th time of asking my question today through the Chair, and for the 6th time for asking the question through the Chair, and the 7th time having to ask
Councillor
through the Chair.
Callaghan, if you have an issue with something, please put it in writing to the monitoring officer after the meeting. Could you please be quiet?
And for the 8th time, Chair, through you for the question for Mr Ellaby, do you think we've rammed this through LGR in Basildon and not actually taken into consideration the effects on children and adults and social care? Because I'm telling you now, having worked at County Hall and dealt with officers directly, I can tell you now there are some massive concerns. There's been tears around LGR because of what's actually going to happen to these children.
Get rid of Essex County Council.
So you think So Councillor Callaghan thinks it's good that officers
Councillor
are crying
Callaghan, will you
over
please be
the
quiet?
future.
You are just wasting everybody's time now.
I'm not wasting time. He's going to impugn me. I'm going to call it.
Because I have to keep stopping to tell you to be quiet. Please, stop, please, stop talking.
It's a council
Stop
debate.
talking, it's not your turn. Do you understand that? That everyone has a turn? Do I have to explain that
need
to
to
you?
still
That
be
it is
fair.
not
Be
your
fair.
turn?
You're not being fair. You're not being fair.
And for the 9th time, and I must say, fantastically chaired tonight as well. These people sitting on the committee maybe need to realise.
You shouldn't be.
Well, neither should you be, really, let's be honest. If it was a full election, you would have been gone alongside all your Labour pals.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, through the chair, for the 10th time, yeah. Mr. Ellaby, through the chair, have we taken into consideration these particular areas? Because it's very clear that officers at County Hall think this is a huge risk. Thank you very much.
Julian, are you happy to answer that, or do you want to get back to Councillor
No, it's
Janine?
fine. So what's important for us, just coming back to the kind of logistics of how it's all working, there is absolute governance around all of the different themes around whether it's children's or adults or whatever else, and I think it's important that actually it's managed properly as part of the process. So do I think officers will be upset by the changes? Yes, absolutely. People are very nervous here in this building as well, but our role here is to manage that process really effectively with colleagues from all the services. I think that's the whole point. That's why the process is going to take the time it's going to take. Come back to my point at the beginning. It's not all going to be resolved by May 2028. It doesn't need to be. And I think if we can have some mature conversations around what does the future setup look like, you could end up with perhaps better services overall. That would be the intention anyway. I can't speak for how it's impacting on particular staff. That's separate.
Thank you, Julian. Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you, Chair. My questions are in several parts, so I appreciate with your indulgence that I may be able to ask them in several parts. But may I first of all echo the comments of Mr. Obi that I do want to be able to believe in the best of Basel and want to be able to deliver the best services for our residents, which is why I'm a passionate believer in local government reform, because I think it does be able to bring our residents to services to our residents at the closest point to them. But I'd also like to be able to say, Chair, that this is the biggest transformation that local government is going through and this council is going through for 50 years. I think there are going to be significant amounts of questions. I think all councillors of all parties are going to be asking significant amounts of questions. That will mean long meetings, but I think we should have that right to be able to do so.
Absolutely right.
So, Mr. Ellaby, could I first of all just ask you to be able to bring up on screen your slide showing the different work streams into the different boxes, if that's okay, Chair? And then I'll come back to my questions once that's on screen, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Just in line with some of the questions that Councillor Callaghan was asking to and the points that Councillor Genet just referred to, I do think it would be important, and it's just a little bit remiss of why we haven't got a box there around children's education and adult social care. Could you just outline why that's not within the current delivery plan and the work that's going to be taken to address that?
Just to be clear, these work streams are about Basildon work streams that I'm running within this building here right now. We are part of the wider work streams on the kind of adults and children's and so on. So we're part of those work streams working alongside Thurrock, but they're not on this screen because these are about my work streams inside this building.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ellaby, for the response there. Could you detail when those work streams started? But I think what would also be helpful is for an update on the other work streams that are taking place, to be able to give confidence, to be able to address the issues that are and questions that people are legitimately asking about children's and adult social care. As you have already rightly said, Thurrock does have an outstanding children's services that we will be able to learn from, but they are important points with local government reorganisation that we need to take forward.
So what I would say through you, Chair, and if it's all right, colleagues, I would suggest that I bring perhaps to the next session a more detailed view on those particular work streams around children's and adults. I can do that in the meantime after the meeting. I don't have it in front of me here, but I kind of have all the detail, so I can make sure that the committee gets that detail on the other work streams, because I can see that that's really important.
I'd just like...
And there was another part to the question. Sorry, Councillor, you...
Discussions with Essex and stuff.
Oh, yeah, sorry, apologies. Yeah, so what we did recently is it's about 3 weeks ago, we had the formal launching with all the chief execs from all across the whole of the county, plus MHCLG, where we formally launched the different work streams, including adults and children's and so on. We as an authority are going to lead on the areas around data and digital and IT. So we're going to be the lead kind of authority sponsoring that, but there are work streams now across the whole of the county, each one led by a different chief exec. So I will get the details on these other work streams and make sure it's reported to you all here so you have visibility.
I think it would be useful if members of the committee sent in some questions beforehand, because obviously this covers a huge area, and then the officers can bring the information that you need to the meeting, and then obviously you can ask some follow-up questions at the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. In fairness, the agenda for the meeting was only produced last week, so we weren't actually aware of what was going to be discussed within the meeting. So I think it's only fair that we have the opportunity to be able to scrutinise. Trying to...
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm just saying, in future, it would be helpful if questions were pre-submitted, and then we can make sure we've got the right officers and also the right information.
So with that in mind, Chair, what I would like to be able to suggest, and I appreciate that we're not onto the work programme yet, but what I would like is for all of these 9 areas, with the addition of adults and children's, to be brought to every meeting that we have of the Local Government Reorganisation Committee, so that we're able to address and be able to ask questions around these important areas.
We'll take that as a noted and under advisement. We'll get back to you on that. So now I'm going to move on to item 4 of the agenda, Environmental Services, Climate and Open Spaces Deep Dive Presentation. I will pass over to...
What's that?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm James Hendry. I'm the Assistant Director for Environment, Climate and Open Spaces. I've been invited along tonight to give you a brief overview of the preparedness work that me and my team and my services are doing in readiness for LGR. Now, the majority of those services, and I'll touch on each one in turn because I think LGR impacts on them in slightly different ways, but I cover everything from borough operations, which includes waste and recycling collections, environmental enforcement, abandoned vehicles, those sorts of things, and Barley Lands depot and transfer station. Neighbourhood services, which includes street cleansing, graffiti removal, pride teams, grounds maintenance, tree maintenance, parks and open spaces, as well as some other services which will still be impacted by LGR, including things like building control, the council's disabled facilities grants, corporate health and safety. So there's a wide range of services that will be impacted in a number of different ways through LGR. Now, they are services that have some of the biggest contracts that the council owns and operates. They are some of the biggest services. And within my portfolio, I have 250 directly employed staff and a further 50 contractors. So it's quite a lot of people resource. And I'll try and touch on each of the points that we've spoken about tonight and talk about the impact of those. Can I go on to the next slide, please, Lou? I think that the services across my portfolio really have an impact on the way that the place feels. And preparedness for LGR is already underway. We've already started that piece of work. We've done a number of pieces of work, particularly focused on neighbourhood services, to make sure that there are connections between the places that we live and to not lose sight of neighbourhood connections through LGR. That includes a move for street cleansing services to be neighbourhood based, with the anticipation that in LGR all you're doing is replicating and expanding the number of neighbourhoods, but you don't lose sight of the individual nature of those areas, the focus and the attention of staff to be able to deliver those services in areas that they know, and to really feel connected to our residents, which is something that is, has been a, potentially could be a fear if you could be subsumed into a larger authority and not have that level of accountability. So some of the key things that our residents see every day are there. It's collecting rubbish and recycling, keeping the streets clean, managing the vehicles, the back office functions, transfer stations and so on. And the key change for that, and I'll talk about that on the next slide, is around becoming as a unitary authority, becoming things like the waste collection and disposal authority. At the moment, Basildon's responsible for the collection and processing of some materials, with Essex County Council being the disposal authority for that. So there are a few opportunities there, and the major one for me and my teams is around clarity of ownership. At the moment, there are things that are done within borough services, and there are some services which are dealt with at an Essex County Council level. If we pick, for example, a frustration of many ward members who contact me regularly about weed spraying, for example, weed spraying is a function that's carried out by the county currently, and the Basildon as a borough is sprayed late in the cycle. Now, obviously, if that's done as a joint up service, you'd say, well, what is the best time to deploy our weed spraying across the borough, and therefore how do we wrap our grounds maintenance service around that? So you'd start to join things together rather than being done separately. So there are a few opportunities around things like that. We've done a lot to modernise those frontline services in the last couple of years. That includes the rolling out of smart routing for our waste and recycling services, rolling out improved and enhanced safety features across our vehicle fleet, installing telematics, installing 360 cameras, installing sensors that help with reversing to prevent accidents. So replicating that on a wider scale and having access to a vehicle workshop that can maintain a larger fleet. Obviously, the economies of scale that come with purchasing more vehicles is something that could be an upside for us, but we've also invested significantly in things like in-cab technology to improve the transparency of the service and making sure that the service is clear about what it delivers, how it's performing, how we operate, so that then the challenge that I set to my teams is to say, how are we in the best place we can be? So rolling into the new authority, whatever it looks like, whether it goes ahead or not, taking on board the previous conversation, this is about making sure that we are ready for whatever future comes our way. Part of that's been about getting managers together in the room and talking about learning from each other. So where we've rolled technology out in one area, how do we replicate that across other parts of the service as well? How do we make sure that we're clear about where our assets are, where our trees are, what condition our bench is in, the state of our parks and open spaces, and having bespoke management plans for them that don't lose sight of the individual nature of each of them, but have a coherent and joined up and measurable approach so that regardless of the future of the authority, we're clear about what it is that our services deliver, we're clear about how well we do it, and we've got people who are ready to embrace that change. Now, I think that the engagement with the workforce is something that I take very seriously, my team take very seriously. We do lots of engagement with frontline staff. Every quarter I go along to every team meeting, every frontline member of staff, and deliver an update on where the organisation is and what's coming around the corner. That's been very helpful in terms of allaying any fears and talking about what that might look like, how that's expected to impact us, and to really separate from what my staff and what residents might be hearing towards what's reality for us. What does that mean? What does the timeline look like, and how is that likely to impact us? And also taking on board the fact that on vesting day, the day of the new authority, services don't stop, particularly in my portfolio. They have to carry on. We have to carry on doing things like collecting the waste. We have to make sure that we're able to continue to provide street cleansing services, for example. So on day one, those things don't stop, but the nature of the way that we do them and some of the larger disposal contracts and things will be coming over to that new authority for us to manage. So I think that there is the potential for greater autonomy. There's a potential to carry on with the journey that my services have been on over the last few years in terms of modernisation and continuing to have that focus on improving services for residents. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't risks and challenges. Part of what the new shadow authority and the new authority will be asked to do very early on is to think about where we have those larger contracts particularly for, if we pick one of the big ones, waste disposal. There is a current waste disposal contract in place with Essex County Council. Thurrock has its own disposal contract as a unitary authority. That shadow authority and that new authority will need to decide pretty soon, within its tenure, where our residual waste material is going to go to be processed. That will obviously depend on how we want to manage it, what that looks like, the operational and logistics around that. There's a shortage of waste transfer stations in the south of Essex. That's something that has always hamstrung us in terms of our operations, and being clear about what that looks like and getting those proposals and contracts in place pretty early on will be important for that new authority. Looking at things like, we've written to the Traffic Commissioner. We have an operator's licence, but Basildon will cease to exist as a legal entity. What does that mean in terms of our operator's licence? How do we make sure that we continue to keep wheels moving? The Traffic Commissioner has pretty much limitless powers in terms of what they can instruct us to do and to stop us from operating. We don't want to be in a position on vesting day that we can't continue to deliver those services. So we need to make sure that we're engaging now, which we are. Now, the team are, myself, we're working on this at the moment. We're mapping out our contracts. The biggest contracts that we have, our fleet contract is up aligned with vesting day, so we're doing the work around that now. We're obviously having those conversations to see whether there's opportunities to explore that with others, but that again comes back to Julian's point about being prepared for the future regardless. If there's a conversation to have about scale of purchasing and procurement and management of fleet, why would we not have that conversation regardless of what happens with LGR? That's about driving down the cost of procurement, driving down the cost of vehicles and getting the best value for money for the taxpayer on something that is an essential frontline service. So I think that there are some things that are solved at scale, and if I focus on building control surveyors, the building control team, post Grenfell, post some of the changes in legislation and regulations around that, we've seen a real raising of the bar around the requirements to operate in that field, and that's driven some people out of it. Recruitment, retention, training up of new staff is something that Basildon on its own is relatively small. If we're operating at a larger scale, that gives us the opportunity to create apprenticeship pathways. And again, to lean on some of the points that Julie was making about linking in with the skills that we need for our borough moving forward, there will be plans, there will be a building control service there in the future. Local authority building control is in a good place, particularly in Basildon. I want to make sure that that's replicated and expanded upon, and that there are pathways there. The critical thing that I impress upon all my teams, though, is making sure that the wheels keep turning, and that is making sure that our staff are turning up, making sure that they feel engaged, that they're part of this communication, that there's two-way dialogue with the workforce as well. But the groundwork that we've been doing over the last couple of years has been about putting things in place to make sure that none of this is a surprise to us. We are prepared, we are mapped, we know where our assets are, and we're starting to get into a place where we are ready for that and in the best place we can be. The challenge is about being match fit. Where I've spoken to colleagues in other authorities who've been through this change, is they say that on day one, the name on your payslip may change, but the most important thing is to make sure that the services keep operating. So in terms of what success looks like, I said it there, keeping services running, making sure that bins are collected, the parks are maintained, making sure that the hedges are cut and the recycling is collected off the streets. But there are early and clear decisions to be made around a couple of things that are highlighted there. So there will be a decision to be made around waste collections, what they look like, whether they're harmonised. There are differences between authorities. But sovereignty sits with that new local authority for that. Making sure our people feel supported through that. A big part of what I've been doing with our frontline staff is making sure that they're ready for change, making sure that they have the right approach and attitude and training in place, and that includes improving access to different types of training for our DFG staff, for example, to make sure that as DFG team moves into probably a larger social care type function, we don't lose sight of what they were set up to do, which was to support disabled residents within Basildon, and making sure that work is replicated. I've put there standardised but stay local. that ties into the move to neighbourhood models, particularly in the cleansing services. That's where we've got allocated staff to areas. They are based within those areas. They know their residents, they know their beats, they know the areas that they're working in, making sure that we retain that local connection with our communities. Working in partnership across both Thurrock and Essex, to all the points that Julia made in the previous presentation. But also, I think that there's a challenge, and this committee will play a role in that, is making sure that as we move into new authority and whatever that may look like, that we don't just lift and shift. We make sure that we're thinking about what outcomes is it we're looking for, and that any decisions that the new authority makes are aligned with that. So success for me would be looking at better services, a smoother experience with residents at the centre, but ultimately it's about making sure that the world doesn't stop moving on the first day of the new authority, that services transfer over and they continue to be delivered. Now there's obviously some significant work that has to go into that, making sure that the Environment Agency are comfortable with our site licences, making sure the Traffic Commissioner is okay for us to keep operating, making sure that our staff are able to be paid for turning up to work. Those are the fundamentals and the back office things. But in terms of regular engagement with my staff, it's a two-way process. The things that they're asking me, we're feeding back through notice boards, through regular team meetings. It's a standing item every quarter. I'm coming along to every team meeting of frontline staff and talking through what it means for us, what the timeline looks like, and we've got notice boards. We're making sure it's on the team meetings, and just making sure that the lines of communication are open, really, with our frontline staff. So thank you. It's a brief overview. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Schnee.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and through the Chair, of course, and hopefully I can ask a question of James. So as we know, commercial fly tipping is an all-time high. And the question I've got a few questions, actually, if you don't mind, just in regards to, will LGR affect our ability to prosecute those who fly tip in our borough?
Happy to answer that.
Thank you, Councillor. So there are some significant changes coming to waste carriers licensing, which are due to come into effect next year. So they will be embedded in. One of the things that we've been pushing for over the last couple of years is a review of the waste carriers license scheme. That is something which is due to come in next year, which does beef up the powers of the local authority to continue to do fly tipping checks. We do a lot of work with joint operations with the police, stop and search type things, and we do continue to do those. I imagine that would still be a power for the new authority, and that's something that we continue to work on.
Thank you very much. And just a quick question, really, around the licence of the waste carrier scheme. So to confirm, if you travel with waste, or you collect commercial waste or waste from residents, for example, and then you travel around the borough with it, am I right in a white van, may I add? Does that mean you need to have a licence for that to be able to dispose of it? Through the Chair.
Happy to answer.
So there are some exemptions, but typically any waste that's carried, unless it's you would have to have if it's produced as a result of a commercial activity you're undertaking, you would need to have a waste carrier's licence.
Thank you very much.
So commercial and residential waste, does that still come under the licence as well, through the Chair?
No, there is a distinction between waste produced commercially. So commercial waste and household waste are two separate categories in law, so there are separate treatments for them.
Thank you very much. Just one last question. And what are we doing, obviously through the Chair, for a question for James, what are we doing as a council to make sure we're continuing to enforce fines and prosecutions during the LGR switchover period, maybe against those who fly tip and use public services like the Crunch for commercial and or personal gain? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. So the Crunch is obviously a service for household waste. We collect household waste. The council does collect commercial waste. albeit on a commercial basis. So the council does have a commercial waste and recycling service. The Crunch is very much a household waste disposal service.
Thank you very much. Just to follow up on that. So if we was to have found that the Crunch was used for example, dumping of commercial waste, would this council prosecute and take further action against that? Because I think there's something out in the public domain today, and I think it would be quite good for clarity around the council's position that when commercial waste is disposed at the Crunch, a taxpayer-funded service, that us as a council during this LGR switchover period, that we're still going to enforce fines and enforcement. Thank you.
James?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure of the context for this in an LGR basis, but obviously if there are issues which members or anybody is aware of, they can be referred through to our environmental enforcement team, who will be able to have a look and advise on the best course of action for that. Yeah. We do have an in-house enforcement team.
Perfect, thank you.
Who are able to look at allegations of environmental crime.
Thank you.
I'm going to call a 5-minute comfort break there, please. Councillor Callaghan, do you have a question?
Yep, thank you. I have two questions, really. I will also just put on the record that Councillor Chris Hilliard is a fantastic councillor, and what he does for this borough's disabled elderly.
That's nothing to do with this meeting. Thank you.
I agree with you, which is why you're allowing those last questions to be heard was a disgrace. The two questions I have is, number one, given the absolute state of this borough right now, it has not looked this bad in years, and that has been reflected in the casework, it's been reflected in what residents have been telling us. Is LGR negatively impacting on your capacity to do the job of keeping this borough looking neat and tidy? And my second question is, you majored on how you are engaging with the frontline staff and you are talking to them and keeping them updated. What impact is it having on those staff that the government have told us very clearly that they are pursuing the 5 model? The incoming Prime Minister is very committed to devolution and to LGR, and yet we now have an administration here locally where the two leading protagonists have told us that they are judicially reviewing it and they are seeking to withdraw the support for the 5 model. What impact is that having on frontline staff, and has any of the politicians been to the depot to engage and to speak with your staff to explain their decisions?
Would anyone like to take that question? Questions? Yeah.
Yeah, happy to answer, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. So, is LGR affecting our ability to deliver the services day to day? No, the resources are the same resources are in place to deliver frontline services. The LGR preparedness is more around thinking around future contracts when they come up and making sure that the services are. We're doing that data gathering piece, rolling out the in-cab phase 2 for cleansing and putting the assets and moving the assets off of a database onto something that is live and enables us to route map much in the way that in-cab phase 1 helps us to digitise and map our waste collection routes and have much better transparency over performance on that. In terms of impact on frontline staff, the questions that were coming back through those working groups, you'd imagine that my staff tell me straight, they tell me exactly what they're thinking. They want to know whether they're going to have jobs on day one. That's a big thing for them, obviously. They want to know they want to know. Probably there's a wide variety of opinions within that. When I'm talking about 300 people, there are some who just say, I don't care about this, I'm not going to engage in this, just as long as I've got a job to come into, you tell me if I haven't, if there's anything changes with that, and we'll deal with it then. Whereas some want to know quite a lot of nuts and bolts. So pitching the presentation at the right level has been generally focused on here's what it looks like, this is what the timeline is, and here's how it's likely to affect us. And part of that conversation has been to make sure that we got, getting frequently asked questions there if there are things that are coming up, and also saying if you're hearing rumours, then let's expose them in the room before they start to spread like wildfire amongst the workforce. And some things like that, they're saying, well, I've heard we're going to move to Thurrock. Well, that's not true, is it? And if you're going to hear it, you're going to hear that from us, and we're going to be able to communicate what that looks like, and we're going to do that in a managed, measured way. So part of this is about myth busting. Now, we've got those quarterly meetings booked in. I'm due to go back in the next month or two, I think. I'm due to go back again. So I will be going back again on that. And in terms of engagement with we had an all-staff session with the leader and the mayor, and I think that there was a commitment a couple of weeks ago to have more of those as well, and welcome a time for those to come to frontline staff as well. So, but the internal communications, they are regular. We've got notice boards dedicated, particularly at Barleylands Depot, and I am doing the quarterly updates. So,
Councillor Barnes next.
Thank you, Chairman. James has mentioned it actually, but I did just want to make that point about the all-staff sessions at the town gate that we did, the first one a few weeks ago, which was really, really useful. We took, well, I don't know how many questions across the 2 sessions, and obviously LGR did come up, so we were able, I think, to assuage some of the concerns that staff had. We've committed to doing them on a quarterly basis because we do recognise that communication is probably the most crucial part of this process, making sure that we share as much information with the staff as we possibly can, so that they understand, you know, as much of the process as we can reasonably share with them, we will.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Callaghan? Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you, Chair. As it's already been referenced earlier, this meeting, may I say that the Crunch was a brilliant service that was introduced by the previous administration, and pleased to be able to continue to support it. So with that, with LGR on the horizon, is that something that we can have, that we can continue to fight for, to make sure that it's something that we continue to prioritise services like that? And then linked to that, what I would, drawing reference between Mr Ellaby's presentation earlier on around your asks of councillors, and your presentation there, Mr Hendry, one of the things I felt was really useful when we introduced the area committees, as well as being able to give funds to charities that were desperately in need of them, we were also able to reintroduce and be able to connect better the link between members and your services through the monthly meetings between the area committee chairs and the area leads. If you allow me to get to the question, then that would be particularly helpful.
Who's chairing the meeting?
I'm just getting bored. Matthew was going to ask a question.
Is that acceptable? Is that acceptable?
Carry on, Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. One of the really important things that we introduced during the area committee process was that really strong link between the chairs of the area committees and the leads of the service, particularly within your service area, Mr Hendry, around being able to look at priority areas of waste, of dumping, of pride services, of pride team services that were desperately in need to be able to be put back on the work programme. I think it was supported by all area committee chairs when that was introduced. Are there any plans to be able to reintroduce that concept going forward? Would that be helpful? And then also, as we go into the social, as we go into the shadow authority, what are the plans to be able to continue that dialogue with members, recognising, Mr Rugby, as you said, that it's vital that we continue the casework, that we use that as intelligence. That was a really useful forum to be able to make those links and connections.
Happy to answer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. So I think that there will obviously be, very early on, there'll be decisions for the new authority and the shadow authority to take over direction of travel, over service levels, over, you know, looking at the way things are done across both authorities and saying, you know, there are these two ways of doing things. Do we go for a little bit of this one? Do we continue with those? Or do we rip those up and start again? And that would include all of the things that you mentioned there in terms of the way in which household waste and recycling and disposal services are managed, and the levels of services that go into that, and the way in which cleansing services are deployed as well. So there are decisions to be made through that shadow authority in terms of the way in which services are provided in the future.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? No? Just bear with me just a moment. Thank you, councillors. Lovely. Right, so now we're going to move on to the work programme. Has everyone got a copy of the forward plan in front of them? Lovely, thank you very much. Does anyone have any requests, suggestions for the work programme?
Thank you, Chair. As I drew reference to earlier on, that this is the most significant transformation this local authority is going through in 50 years. It did concern me when seeing the order paper where there's only 2 meetings of this committee scheduled in this municipal year. Therefore, I think it would be right for this committee to meet on a monthly basis to be able to consider all the items that I drew reference to earlier on and scrutinise as each stage along the process to make sure that we get this decision right.
That suggestion is noted, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, could we vote on the suggestion?
We're just going to get back to you on that, won't be a second.
What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for?
An answer.
And whether we can have a vote on frequency of the meeting. Is that what?
You've got four four scheduled. So there's four. So
I know. I mean, I've worked out many planning committees scheduled in sort of
then
the last year.
This one, then October, then January, and then April. There are four scheduled at the moment.
do you still want more?
If
Thank you, Chair. I think we do need to meet on a monthly basis. This is a significant decision. I don't think we can wait till October. I don't think we can wait till January. I don't think we can wait till April. This is a fast-moving piece of work that Mr. Ellaby's working on. I think effective scrutiny needs to be in place for us to get this right.
Apparently they're
Councillor Barnes.
Thank you. I'm glad to see you're in favour of additional meetings. I think there may be some merit in what's being said. I mean, whether monthly is sensible, I don't know. But I think if the committee was so minded, I think they could probably delegate the decision to you as chairman. And if it was felt that additional meetings were required, I'm sure you would schedule them in, as I do as leader from time to time.
The last time I checked, this was a scrutiny meeting. So why the executive is here interfering in the number of meetings that the scrutiny committee is seeking to have? This is a decision.
Councillor Callaghan, nobody's interfering. It's just people's suggestions.
He literally just did, and he's the leader of the council, so that should carry
It's just
some weight.
people's. I haven't made a decision yet.
Can I finish
I haven't
my
made
point?
a decision yet.
That's great, but can I finish my point? So I'm just going to carry on. So in terms of what was being asked, Councillor Ferguson has legitimately asked for a vote on the frequency of the meeting. He's a backbench councillor in scrutiny. He's allowed to do that.
I haven't said no to it yet.
Okay, but I'm just making the point. I'm making the point that why is
I mean, it's
Councillor Barnes
irrelevant
interfering?
because I haven't responded to it yet.
Are we going to
I haven't said
because we've
yes
now
or
spent-
no.
we've spent more
I haven't said
time-
yes
But
or
we've
no
now spent
yet.
more time on you getting
Could
an
you
answer
turn
to
your
this
mic off,
than we did
please?
scrutinising the
Could
LGR
you just turn your mic off,
process.
please?
So,
Could you
how
just
long are
turn
we-
your mic
How long are we
off,
going to
please?
take to get to this
Could you
point?
just turn your mic off, please?
Can I get an
just
answer to
turn
that
it
question? Just get an answer to the question. How long will it take to get an answer to a question? Because we've spent more time on this than we actually did scrutinising LGR.
I apologise for
And your toilet break.
inconveniencing you
And your toilet break.
desperately.
So between your toilet break and this, we've spent
Point
more
of
time
order,
than we
Chair.
actually have on
Point of
scrutinising
order.
LGR.
23A. Criticising the chair for taking a toilet break. I mean, it's not exactly very
An hour and 20 minutes.
gentlemanly of you now, is it, leader of the
What
opposition?
did she do with your phone?
Could everybody turn their mics off and stop speaking, please?
Yeah. I just wanted to check. That's all.
no,
But-
that's fine.
So that's fine if you wanted to take
Yeah.
a vote on that basis.
I think I'm going to get back to you on that.
Chair, sorry, I formally moved that we vote on having monthly meetings of this scrutiny committee. I have that right to be able to formally move that, and it's seconded, but in this meeting. So therefore, I think we should go ahead with the vote.
Do you have a seconder for that, Councillor Ferguson? Lovely. Wonderful. Let's vote then. If we can have a vote on monthly meetings from now on for LGR scrutiny. All in favour? Don't mind? Don't mind? Okay. it's good. Let's go with it then. That's it, isn't it? There's no one else.
I've not voted yet.
Oh yeah, you're on the committee, aren't you? All those against? Abstaining?
I'm abstaining because I'm not a permanent member of the committee.
Wonderful. That's carried then. Congratulations, Councillor Ferguson. You may.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I think it would be remiss of me not saying today that if this was such an important subject for the previous administration, they would have had an LGR scrutiny committee themselves, wouldn't they? So I'd love to find out, especially my ask to James here.
The work programme?
Oh, about the work programme. Okay, sorry, no worries. Maybe if I can ask the question of Julian, maybe. Do you think if we had an LGR scrutiny committee this time last year, we'd actually be ahead of where we are now?
You don't have to answer that. That's fine. We'll just leave it there and go to the work programme. So, suggestions for the work. What? Yeah. Suggestions for the work programme.
Thank you, Chair. As I referenced earlier on, the 9 areas that Mr. Ellaby presented, with the addition of adults and children's, I think should be a permanent fixture on each of the agendas that we consider going forward. They're all fast moving. They're all going to change as the period goes on. It's not designed to be controversial, so I'm sure it will get the support of all members to have those as permanent fixtures with the report on each of those items for this committee.
Would you like to move that?
Thank you, Chair. I formally move that all of the items that I
Thank
suggested
you.
earlier on, with the addition of adults and children, should be a permanent fixture on the agenda for these meetings. As I said, and I repeat, it is fast moving. There's lots of pieces that will change and evolve, and I hope that all members support that. I think, Mr. Ellaby, just for clarity, it might be useful just for you to bring those 9 areas back up on screen, and with the addition of the 2 additional areas.
I'm going to take a vote on it. Yeah. Are you seconding it?
I will, on the basis that we also add into the standing items the risk register, because that should be something that the committee looks at on a monthly basis if there are any major changes, and also an item on correspondence. So to be able to look at any letters, any presentations that have come from MHCLG, from the LC meetings that take place, the Essex Leaders and Chief Execs meetings, so that we can keep up to date with all of the latest from the government and what is being said both ways.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move an amendment on that, which hopefully one of my colleagues at the dais will second me on. I'm fully in agreement with Councillor Ferguson around the first 2 areas around children's services and adult social care. I'm not too sure about the correspondence between the councils. I'm not too sure how relevant that is. So I'd like to move an amendment to the motion.
I'm just going to let Julian speak first. Julian, is that all right? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add a couple of points. Just on the correspondence, I appreciate your comment that we can obviously do certain things confidentially. There may be certain correspondence you do want to see, so I don't want to rule it. You may not want to rule it out altogether, but that's for you to consider. That's fine. Yeah. The point I was just going to make, Chair, was that it could become very mechanical, some of this stuff, and at some point you've got to have room for perhaps what I'd call the debate. And what I mean by that is you need, for me, there's an issue about the opportunity for LGR is about local representation and community voice. And I think if you're not careful, you turn it into a big operational machine, and you kind of that opportunity might be something you would like to revisit. I also think there's an issue which has come up this evening, which is around, I'd call it advocacy, and that could be lobbying into government, but it could be about presentation and representation of ourselves into Thurrock and other places. So there's a theme around advocacy for me, which is key. I think at some point you're going to have to do a Devo conversation and about what that looks like, but that might be a bit down the road because you're waiting to see what the government's going to do. But I do think that will impact on LGR. So I just think there's some broader themes that you might want to revisit, but I'll let you work out how and when you'd like to pick any of that up. Thanks, Chair.
The amendment that's been proposed is that, as per Councillor Ferguson's initial amendment to the work programme, we continue with the children's services and the adult social care part of it. However, we do not engage the letters and the communication, because otherwise that becomes the debate rather than the actual core principles of the delivery plan. Thank you.
Can we vote on that, please, with the amendment?
Sorry, Chair, just for clarity, we haven't actually tabled the initial proposal yet, which is just these 9 items that we see on screen of communications and engagement, property and assets, procurement and contracts, workforce, LATCOs, finance, digital technology and data, legal and governance, transition planning and PMO, as well as adults and children's services. So could we just vote on those first of all?
Yeah, that's fine. Are we all in agreement with that? No? Huh?
They're going to propose another vote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I think we're all agreed that we want that to happen. Yeah, that's good.
Chair, can I also make another proposal? Thank you, Chair. Can I also propose then that we also do receive correspondence, and I take completely the points that Mr. Ellaby has said, that there will be correspondence at different levels that this committee should be aware of. We can consider how that, in the forum that is best done, but I think it's the responsibility of this committee still to have oversight of that. So I formally move that we also add correspondence and the monthly risk register to each of the agendas as well.
Through you, Chair, can I just have a point of clarity? When we're talking about letters and things like that, how does that fit in with GDPR and ICO? Just for clarity for me.
As Scrutiny Committee, Scrutiny members have got kind of enhanced rights to information anyway, that's just, they do. So, yeah, I mean, they do have that. Within that, obviously, we'd need to be careful. I'm just wondering what type of thing it would be, but they do, and we could screen that, but they do have enhanced powers anyway. Like any member could say, I'd like to see this, all of these things, it's part of the work programme, it's part of deep dive, and would have to provide it because it's enhanced. With confidentiality, all the rules that apply, you know, ordinarily in terms of kind of heightened data, we're not going to be providing personal, it wouldn't be that type of data that would be coming anyway. So we'd still put it through like a legal lens if we needed to. I just wanted to make the point generally about information, how it works as part of the scrutiny function.
Okay. Councillor Ferguson, just for clarity again, could you please repeat what you wanted to move?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to include correspondence as a permanent agenda item that we consider, and the risk register as a permanent agenda item that we can consider.
Can I just add something? I mean, it would have to be, that wouldn't be published, obviously. the correspondence would be just for the committee.
Consider the best way to do that. Can I speak on the motion?
Not just yet. Councillor Schneider, can you please repeat your amendment?
So I don't think we're going to pop past that now, are we? Because we agreed on the initial.
I'm just trying to get clarity. Bear with me.
Can I ask a question? Because I know there's people watching on the stream. I just make sure that they know we are still here.
I just need a moment.
How long's the moment?
Jesus Christ. Oh dear.
I'd like to speak on the motion. She explaining how it works. Can the committee have some clarity on what's been discussed so that we know what's happening?
I'm just taking some advice from the monitoring officer.
On what?
Why don't you just press the mute button? Hold the mute button.
Can I speak on the motion? No, are we still debating the motion? we still on the comfort break?
Right, I think we have clarity now. Okay. Councillor Callaghan, would you like to speak on the motion? You do that first.
We got there. Yes, I would. I think it, because I was the one who raised the issue about correspondence. Perhaps it might just be useful for me to say what I'm kind of getting at. All of the correspondence between this council, whether that is to the leader, whether that is to the chief executive, is to a government department, all of it is FOI. So all of it can be released into the public domain anyway. It's not a question of Councillor Barnes or Gary Jones, if he ever turns up for work, being able to hide the correspondence.
Chair, point of order, impugning an officer. You can't be discussing why someone is not at work at the I didn't.
Well,
Yes, you did.
I think we should wind up now, Chair.
Councillor Callaghan. We should probably wind up.
Yeah.
So I'm not allowed to finish my point.
No.
So we've waited 20 minutes for you to do that. Because all I was going to say is, because it's all FOI-able anyway.
Okay, so thank you for bearing with me. Obviously, I'm a new councillor and a new chair, and I just want to make sure that I understand exactly what's happening. So, excellent patience. Thank you. So I think I'm happy to vote on Councillor Ferguson's original proposal of all those issues on the slide, all of those things plus the 2 extra things.
Yeah.
Have we ever done that?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Fine. Okay. So this is what I need to understand.
There was no vote.
There was no vote. There was just an assumption. Yeah. Yeah. That's fine. I think anything
monthly meetings.
that was monthly meetings. That's what I thought. Fine. Okay. For that. Yeah. Yeah. I think anything else needs to be put in writing, sent to me, and then I'll discuss it I'll take some advice from the monitoring officer.
Chair, if I could just interject here, I have already formally moved to be able to have the risk register and correspondence on the agenda. We've had the monitoring officer's advice around that, but it's all in the public domain. We have high levels of scrutiny we have high levels of authority as a scrutiny committee.
Okay, we'll take it straight to the vote then. Yeah. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you, that's not passed. So I think anything else for the work programme, if you could email me. I've got some forms coming together actually that are quite useful for members of the committee to put suggestions on for the work programme. Send them in to me and I'll go through a process of whether or not it... Sorry?
Will they have to then be voted? I wouldn't engage with
No. Okay. Yeah.
So
I'm going to close this meeting now.
You're going to have
I'm going to close this meeting now.
Are we going to
That's
vote?
enough. I'm going to close the meeting.